We're back here for part 4 with lifetime resident Robert C. Davis. He is 95 years old and he has seen pretty much of everything in East Palestine. So I'm gonna just throw some buildings at you and places and landmarks, and I just want you to tell me about. Well, the first one I'm going to start off with is Prospect Hill. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Where would that be at?
Up here behind the high school.
Up there in the Jimtown area?
Not Jimtown. No, right up here at the park. You know where the ball fields are up there?
Yeah.
Well, that was all part of coal mining up in there.
But that wouldn't be Prospect Hill. The Prospect Hill was over at where the reservoir is. They did some birds view of East Palestine back in the 1900s or something, where there weren't any trees up there. You know that reservoir up there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I was told what they call Prospect Hill. Did you think, or?
I always thought it was Reservoir Hill.
Oh, really?
Ever since I was a kid, it was called Reservoir Hill. Prospect Mines
is over at the park.
Right.
So maybe I got my stories mixed up. Hey, you lived it.
Well, I'll tell you. Now, this was back before my time. I don't remember the mines being up there.
So you don't remember nothing about the mines?
No, I don't.
You don't remember any of the railroad track coming down off the hill?
No, I don't. That was before my time. After the mining was up there, remember the Ferris Coal Company?
Yes.
Well, they went up. All the coal that was up in that area was mined out by Fairfield Coal Company. After, years after, the mines were up there.
Ferris Coal Company.
So,
even Ferris Coal Company had a runway up there because they had airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
Up in towards the reservoir?
No. Up here in the park.
Up here in the park.
Beyond the
Carbon Hill.
You know where they built those ball fields up
there? They had airplanes landing up there?
Yeah.
Up beyond there.
There was an airstrip up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer there?
I don't know what's back in there, but I remember it being there as a kid.
Probably all grown up now because the Ferrises, they're all gone.
But one of my questions was, and I think your nephew, Bill Davis, was telling me a story up there where they used to have, what would you call that, Reservoir Hill?
Yeah.
Reservoir Hill, they used to have some tracks that come down off the hill, and they had cars. And they'd load the coal cars up, and they'd come to, I have some of them old maps that show the tracks come right down on the right-hand side of that Wood Street School, Captain Taggart area right there. But he told me, and I find this hard to believe, so this is my question, maybe you know. He said they didn't have any brakes.
No what?
No brakes. When them cars come off down them rails, they didn't have any brakes on.
No, they didn't.
He said it was so dangerous they'd be up on the hill yelling, "Look out below," or something or other. And them cars come off that hill, if you were out in front of you, you're dead.
Yeah, that could be. Because coming out of the mine shafts, they were down like this. And they had little donkeys.
They would pull them back up the hill, right?
Yeah, that would pull the cars out of the mine.
Okay.
Because those donkeys were only about this high. And that's about the height of a shaft.
Okay.
Now, you know where the police station is?
Yes.
Let's see. On the other side of the police station, you'll notice a little hump in the road there when you're driving up Main Street.
Yeah.
You hardly feel it, but that's where the railroad was coming from. That railroad come down along there,
Ran inside that. Well,
up to where the railroad tracks were.
Past the church.
Where they loaded it.
There was a church there. Then it come up behind, on a road behind the Rite Aid. There was
Rite Aid.
Yeah, where Family Dollar sits at now. You know where Family Dollar sits at?
Yeah.
Taggart
yeah,
and Rebecca.
Yeah.
There was an alley there where they had some railroad tracks that came right up to meet the main lines up there.
And beyond the main line, they extended on over to McClure's, where they sold sand and gravel, and over to the lumber company, which sat on East Clark Street.
Do you remember the flour company over there? The flour mill?
Well, that was on East Martin Street, Murray's. Murray's Feed Mill.
No, there was a flour place, mineral flour. I have a couple maps of it, and it sat where the plaza is now there on Taggart Street.
Yeah.
Was there a flour company there? Mineral flour?
No, not that I know of. Where that plaza is down there was part of McGraw Tire Rubber Company. And that's where they put all of their trucks, their garage and stuff like that. And on one end, on Liberty Street, there was a great big water tower.
Water
there.
tower. That's where the aerial shot came from.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm. That was a water tower. Then there was another water tower down where
the pottery.
Kenmore.
Kenmore, yeah.
That building was a rubber company.
You worked at Kenmore, didn't you?
No, my brother did, Bill. In fact, that's where he met his wife. That's another story. But there was a rubber company down there called Little Jim. And they had a big tower, just the one like McGraw's did down there. They had that for if the buildings caught on fire.
Right, it'd be gravity-fed water and put the stuff out. Did you ever ride a train out of town anywhere?
Did I ever what?
Did you ever ride the train depot? Go up to the train passenger depot and take a train anywhere?
No.
No? I've never ridden on a train.
The only train rides I had was when I was working on the railroad. Once in a while, you had the engineer, you had the fireman, you had a brakeman. I was a brakeman. And one time I would draw a trip to Altoona, Pennsylvania, and you go up and down the mountains.
Yeah.
Well, the brakemen, they had a hut, just a hut like this, where you could go in and sit down while you're riding the train. And your job was to look back over the cars and see if there was any smoke, like a hot box on the wheels.
Right.
If you had a hot box, you got eventually, if you didn't get it taken care of, you'd have a fire. And then I'd have to leave that tank car and walk back. On the top of each car was a platform about that wide. The brakeman had to leave the thing here and walk back over those trains. It was moving back about 23 cars and set up air retainers. That was what they called brakes. You stayed there until you heard the whistle. Then you walked back down like this. It didn't make any difference if it was snowing or raining or anything. Well, I never was in it when it snowed, but I was when it rained.
So you're going 40, 50 mile an hour down the tracks and you got to walk back these moving cars.
Absolutely.
Didn't you ever think that you might not return?
That's one of the reasons why I quit.
I don't know I'd have been there very long.
Well, I tell you what, when you're young, you can do anything.
Right. Did it pay pretty good?
Yeah, it was good pay. Well, you might ask me a question. Why did I quit?
Yeah, why did you quit? Making too much money?
No. It was a night turn. And we had these lanterns that we swing back and forth like this to stop and go. Well, one night, everything was going all right. The engineer told me to go back to, I don't know how many cars, and let him know when we're getting close to the main line, because you can't back out on the main line. You'd be in trouble. Before you get to the main line, you get off and you throw a switch, which changes the track.
Right.
So that if you have to go out on the main line and there's nothing coming, that's okay. Well, I suppose I was about 10 cars from the main line, and I gave the engineer the signal, like this, and my light went out. So I got in my pants pocket to get some matches to relight the lantern, and they were all wet, because it rained like heck, and it was cold. So the engineer was probably smart enough to know that something happened, and he stopped the train. And somebody come back and asked me what the trouble was, and I said, well, I went to light my lantern, the matches was wet, and I had no way to light it. He said, well, it's about time to knock off. So we went back down to the shanty, and I went in to get warm and dry, and then get something to eat, and somebody stole my lunch. Well, I said, that's enough for me.
But you was pretty pissed off by that,
I sure
weren't you?
was.
Hungry?
I didn't say anything. I got up and walked out that door, got in my car, and went home.
And that was it.
I didn't tell nobody. Well, I went home, and it must have been about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And Nancy's told me, asked me, what are you doing home this time in the morning? I said, I quit. And I told her why. Well, we went to bed. The phone started ringing about 5 o'clock in the morning. And wanted to know if Mr. Davis was there. Nancy said, yes, he's here. She said, okay. They looked all over that yard for me. They thought I got under a wheel or
Run
something,
over?
which could happen.
Right.
Well, I never went back, and I don't ever remember getting my last paycheck.
Wow, so they owed you some money.
And the next day I went to Kabuta and got hired right on the spot.